Today, we've been able to see that this is truly a national disaster that deserves the national recovery response that it is getting. This is a whole of government effort. And we have over 1,000 federal employees on the ground here in Maui, helping the people of this community get the resources they need to rebuild their houses, their schools, their businesses. And I've been so fortunate to be able to meet with business leaders, to meet with survivors and parents talking about reopening schools, to be able to see the forensics department that has been put together to meet the needs of bringing closure for those families who have lost loved ones in this, to meet with first responders and hear about the heroes that are in this community. And this is a community that has suffered unimaginable loss, but is meeting it with unimaginable strength and resilience. And I can tell you that the first call that I got when I landed in Hawaii was from President Biden, who pledged that he is not going to forget Maui and that he is going to continue to bring this whole of government approach to the work that is needed here. And that is our pledge together as House Democrats, that our caucus will be here for the long recovery ahead to make sure that the resources are here so that people can recover and fully rebuild this community. Just today, the Biden administration announced $95 million will be going to help harden all of Hawaii's electrical systems. This will be coming out of the infrastructure bill that was passed in the last Congress, bringing more vital resources so that we can help not only in the recovery, but in the prevention of wildfires and natural disasters like this in the future. So this is really a case where we are here to tell the survivors and the people of this state and this island and community that we are here for the long haul, that we stand with them, we see them, we are going to bring their stories back to the halls of Congress, and they are going to see that reflected in the aid that we are going to continue to bring home to them. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend, the champion for this district, Congresswoman Jill Tokuda.
Thank you, Catherine. And I will tell you that on behalf of Hawaii's congressional delegation, on behalf of myself, to have my friend Whip Clark here in Hawaii, it's not just her standing here before you. What I feel, what I know, is she represents hundreds of members of Congress from across this country that have told me over and over and over again, we stand with Maui. I think every single one of us knows when you put your feet here, when you feel what we have been feeling, when you see what we've been seeing, when you experience just the devastation, but also the hope for where we go from here, you get the urgency. You get the urgency of why we're going to fight like hell to make sure when we go back in September, we have the money we need to keep government running so that resources do not slow down here on Maui, that we get the aid and support that we need, not just right now. This is a generational issue that we must commit to. How we treat this disaster, how we take care of Maui is a message to this entire country of how we as Americans take care of each other when we need it most. This is so much bigger than Maui, and we know that. This is about how we stand united as a country. Disaster does not discriminate. I've said that over and over again. It doesn't care if you're a red state, a blue state, an independent state. Disaster strikes every single day. We need to make sure every single Americans, but most importantly, we need to make sure our Maui Ohana knows that when disaster strikes, our federal government will be here with the whole of government approach to wrap its arms around it quickly and take care of all of us now and going forward into the future. Today, we were so humbled to be in the presence of survivors, to see just the honest, raw vulnerability that is out there, and to really understand, again, why we must work so hard. We were able to thank first responders who have never stopped from day one, and they will not stop. until everyone here gets the help that they need, till families are reunited with their loved ones in a meaningful way. We have been able to see so many individuals right now who are looking forward with hope but struggling. And I can assure you, as you've heard from Whip Clark, as you have heard the words of the president, you know, for myself especially, we are not leaving Maui. We will not leave Maui at all until every single individual here gets the help and the support that they need. So thank you again, Catherine, for being here as a friend, as a champion. And you know, it really helps me to know that when we go back in September, I have hundreds of advocates who get it, who understand why we fight so hard, why we understand the urgency, and why Maui needs absolutely the help that it needs. This is a message to our country about how we take care of Americans, how we come together as a United States. With that, we'll open for questions.
I've heard from some people, some of the survivors, some who are struggling, who are fearful that we'll be forgotten when the next emergency hits, and already there's a major storm hitting in Florida, in Georgia, and then could squabbling in our nation's capital result in FEMA funds running out. Your assurance that both of those things won't happen?
You know, the government shutting down, FEMA not being funded is absolutely not an option. And you've said it yourself, disaster is continuing to strike across our country. It is so critical that the billions and billions of dollars that we need to fund FEMA is put there when we go back in September. So shutting down government, not funding FEMA is absolutely not an option. And we know this personally why it's so important to make sure that absolutely happens.
Yeah. It is our basic fundamental responsibility as members of Congress to pass a budget to make sure that our government stays open. And it is our fundamental responsibility to meet the needs of the people of Maui. And this is going to be a long recovery. And yes, we are already, our hearts and prayers are with the people of Florida that are, experiencing the hurricane today and those effects. But we have to be able to understand this is a long-term recovery. We're 3 weeks in, and it could be years before we really start the construction and rebuilding that's needed. And that's why it's so critical that we have the Congresswoman to be that voice, to bring members here, bipartisan members that she has assembled, to come and see not only the devastation, but meet the survivors and hear their hopes and their as much anxiety as we saw and true trauma reflected in people. There is a resilience and a strength to this community that we have a responsibility to honor by doing our jobs. Keep the government funded, keep it open, and keep this disaster recovery money flowing here.
Thank you.
What can be done to cover this shortfall that FEMA is facing by the end of September? You talked about it not being an option, but we're facing this reality here. What can be done on
You want to cover that first? Or?
Sure. So the president has put forward a $12 billion today. I believe another $1 billion has been added to that request in the supplemental budget. So it's our job when we get back on September 12th to make sure that that funding comes through. FEMA goes where disasters happen, and it is only a matter of time as we see so many more wildfires, floods, hurricanes that are coming in over very warm waters. Because of climate change, unfortunately, we are going to see more, not less, natural disasters. And it is a fundamental responsibility that we pass that supplemental, get the funding that FEMA needs.
The House Republican leadership in one voice is talking about wanting to support Maui, and we're funding the recovery efforts as a high priority. And then in the next voice, they're talking about leading an investigation into FEMA's response. Are those conflicting messages weeding their way into the actual negotiations of securing the funding that you have and your staff has with your Republican counterparts?
You know, the bottom line is I appreciate that so many individuals across the aisles have stood up and said, we support Maui. They understand the absolute need for us to have disaster funding. They know that it doesn't matter if it's a red state or a blue state, tragedy strikes every single day as we are seeing right now. So making sure that FEMA has that funding quickly is absolutely critical for every member of Congress. So I will say this, I appreciate the fact that so much of attention has been brought to the needs the urgency that we have here on Maui, we have to focus in on that. Right now, our people need help. They need shelter. They need food. Our businesses are losing money day by day, unable to maintain their employees. Schools need to be able to reopen. We need to take care of the mental health and the health care of our people. So many things must happen absolutely right now. We need to focus all this concern that we have across the aisle from both Democrats and Republicans and focus it on helping the real people here on Maui.
Whip Clark,
This will be
any
the last
thoughts on
question,
any
guys.
thoughts on the
Last question.
speaker's investigation, calling for an investigation to the FEMA response here?
You know, just as the Congresswoman said, the most important thing that we can do is meet the needs here of this community. And the thing that would be most destructive to that is to take this disaster, this grief that this community, the loss they have suffered of human life, of their businesses, some that went back for generations, and make it a political issue to make some sort of political stand. That would be the very worst thing that we could do. So I hope, as the Speaker plans to come visit, there have already been Republican members who have been on island, that they will put that sort of political squabbling behind them and focus in on what matters here. And that's the survivors, and making sure that their voices are leading the decisions on how we rebuild here in Maui.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.